Good afternoon and welcome to another Working For You program. I am Lesroy Williams. I thank you very much for joining us for our program today. We continue to appreciate the very fact that you tune in to this program from week to week. We continue to provide you with information relating to what is happening in the government with respect to the work of the government, and that is why this program is called Working For You, the government working for you. We continue to feature heads of departments, directors, senior officials of the government, and of course the ministers of the government too. This program is for them. And so we thank you very much. Today we are going to be having a very lively discussion on consumer rights. Consumer rights and responsibilities and the protection of those rights. And I have with me officials from the Department of Consumer Affairs. I have the Director of the Department of Consumer Affairs, Mr. Paul Quealy. I also have with me Mr. Tanja Morton. Is that how you pronounce your first name?
Yes.
Tanja Morton, I'm correct, and he's the investigations officer.
Correct.
He's like the detective in the Department of Consumer Affairs. And I have Trista Watley Stennett, who is no novice when it comes to this type of work, and she is the Senior Consumer Affairs Officer. Welcome to all three of you.
Good afternoon.
Happy to have you here.
Happy to be back as well.
Okay. Right. The consumer movement marks 15th March with World Consumer Rights Day every year as a means of raising global awareness about consumer rights and needs. Celebrating the day is a chance to demand that the rights of all consumers are respected and protected. That's important. And to protest against market abuses and social injustices which undermine those rights. World Consumer Rights Day was inspired by President John F. Kennedy, who sent a special message, some of which I will share, to the US Congress on the 15th of March, 1962, in which he formally addressed the issue of consumer rights. He was the first world leader to do so. The consumer movement first marked that date in 1983 and now uses the day every year to mobilize action on important issues and campaigns. John F. Kennedy began his statement to the US Congress by saying, "I have sent to the Congress today a special message on protecting the consumer's interest." All of us are consumers. All of us deserve the right to be protected against fraudulent and misleading advertisement and labels. The right to be protected against unsafe, or worthless drugs and other products. The right to choose from a variety of products at competitive prices. He goes on to say, but modern living is so complex that the present laws on the statute books are inadequate to secure these rights. Thousands of common household items contain potentially harmful substances. Every year, new chemicals are being added to our food or sprayed on crops. 90% of the prescriptions written today are for drugs which were unknown 20 years ago. Unless the housewife is an expert dietitian, mathematician, chemist, and mechanic, she cannot properly and economically run her house and shop for her family. In another section, he said that new drugs are being placed on the market every day without any requirement of advance proof that they will be effective in treating the conditions for which they are recommended. Over 20% of the new drugs available since 1956 were found to be incapable of bearing out one or more of their sponsors' claims on what their effect would be. This means that people not only are wasting their money, but are also suffering needlessly. Similarly, $2 billion of cosmetics are sold every year without any requirement that they be tested for safety, and as a result, thousands of women have suffered burns and other injuries to the eyes, skin, and hair. A fifth of all the meat we now eat is not inspected by the Department of Agriculture, and extensive underground traffic exists in habit-forming barbiturates and stimulants. Drugs which could also be sold by a simple common name are too often sold by complex scientific names which confuse the purchaser and raise the price. All of these problems are covered by my recommendations to the Congress today. And in that statement by John F. Kennedy in 1962, therein lies, the basis and the rationale for really protecting consumers' rights. He mentioned so many things in that, and they are still applicable today. Now, Mr. Quealy, you are the director of the Department of Consumer Affairs. Or is it called the Bureau of Consumer Affairs as well?
Consumer Affairs Department.
Consumer Affairs Department. Is a bureau different? Because in the Act, it states the Bureau of Consumer Affairs.
Yes, that was to be a different type of body that would have had a tribunal attached to it as well.
That is correct.
Yes,
Mhm.
but we do not have that in place.
Okay, that is not in place. Right. But that is in the Consumer Affairs Act of 2009. It's the Bureau of Consumer Affairs, which is not yet in place. But could you tell me what is the role, the function, the duties, and the powers of the Department of Consumer Affairs?
Sure. Good afternoon again to everyone in Radio Land and Internet Land. The Consumer Affairs Department was established to inform, educate, empower, and to empower consumers to protect themselves when conducting transactions in the marketplace. We are the only agency with the responsibility of consumer advocacy within the Federation, and in light of this, the department has been given the mandate of ensuring that the rights of consumers are defended and that a suitable and fair marketplace is maintained. Since the inception of the department in 2002, the issue which dominated the scope of the work of the department was price control, which was geared at protecting the most vulnerable in our society, hereby allowing them to be able to purchase basic food items at reasonable prices. With this aspect dominating the large portion of the workload, other issues relating to consumer protection were somewhat neglected. However, with changes in the global economy and the overall focus being diverted from price control to that of trade liberalization, coupled with the closure of the government supply office in 2013 here in St. Kitts and Nevis, the focus of the department has been adapted to current economic realities, and the main responsibilities of our department now are engagement in market research, providing complaint resolution services, ensuring all businesses comply with the laws of the Consumer Protection Act of 2003, offering education programs to the public so that they may have the necessary information as to their rights as consumers, which is the purpose of this program today. Monitoring government price control items such as the 23 categories of the food basket items and essential drugs. But while I'm on this one, I would like to say that we cannot dictate what the price is on the shelf of these items. We monitor these items because they have a specified markup range with which is supposed to be applied to them. So if we realize that they're going away or more higher than what they're supposed to, we would take the necessary steps and write to the cabinet for them to address this issue. Items within this list: the food basket, so persons could be aware. Chicken, frozen. Meats, frozen. Fish, frozen. Meat salted and in brine, which is your saltfish. Fish salted and in brine. Vienna sausage, cornmeal, dried peas, cereal, butter, margarine, pasta products, cheddar cheese, sardines, tuna and fish, fresh fruits and vegetables, toothpaste, lard and substitutes, cooking oil, rice, toilet paper, medicated soap, which is your Dettol soap, powdered detergent, and disposable diapers for adults and children. All items outside of this list carry no restrictions, and companies are allowed to use percentage markups which are not determined by the government. In relation to the list highlighted, wholesalers are allowed a 20% markup on these items on their landed cost. Retailers within the Bastille area and rural areas are allowed a 25% markup on frozen items such as chicken, meats and fish, while all other items outside are allowed a 20% markup on their wholesale price. So we conduct field visits on a bi-weekly basis to collect pricing information for these items, and they are uploaded into our SKNIS shopper app database so persons can get an idea what the prices are of items before they actually go into the store. And we also do a food analysis to ensure that the prices are not being taken above what they're supposed to be. And Mr. Morton will expound on this a little bit later. We also undertake a quarterly analysis of gasoline prices within the Federation to see how the prices are fluctuating from quarter to quarter, year to year, stuff like that. So I will leave it here for now and turn over to...
Right, but before you leave it there for now, basically we do not have any sort of legislation that speaks to price control, but basically what you're saying is that there is still some sort of a mechanism within the department to which you don't want to have too great a disparity in terms of prices with respect to a food basket that you mentioned, certain goods and so on. So there's really no price control legislation.
There is not any price control legislation, but there is SRNO 41 of 2007, which outlines the markup for these items, because it is calculated on the landed cost, so you cannot determine what the actual shelf price would be. The landed cost of an item could fluctuate from shipment to shipment, so you would see a different price on the shelf at different times when you go back to the supermarkets. When the supply office was in operation, the government imported milk, flour, rice, sugar. So they imported them at a discounted rate. customers benefited from that. And the government, since they were the importer, they could determine what the selling price would be.
Mm-hmm.
But now, with an open market, you cannot do that. So that's where the markup comes into place.
Free market. Okay, now Trista, you recently celebrated World Consumer Rights Day, which of course is celebrated since 1983 on March 15th, with a week of activities. Can you give us some of the highlights of that week and some of the achievements or successes of holding that very same week of activities?
Good afternoon, everyone, again. The Consumer Affairs Week was held the 14th of March to the 19th of March. We started our activities with a church service at the Antioch Baptist Church, which was very, very inspirational. The Monday, we held some different radio program sessions educating the general public, like we're doing now, about their rights and responsibilities of a consumer. One of the main highlights was the Wednesday, which we celebrated Businesses Are Consumers too, in which we had a business forum. As you know, businesses are also consumers, but we took the opportunity to invite them, to hear from them, and also to indicate to them what we as a department know that they should, the guidelines that they should be operating under. We had discussions from Mr. Glenville Leader, who is the senior health inspector at the Ministry of Health. And Mr. Leader, he issued some stern warnings to them, in which we spoke basically about the requirements of license, how they would get their license, and what they have to do, the requirements that they have to do in order to get it, citations, and the cancelling of their business license because of, as it go against the act, the cleanliness and sanitization of the establishments, the dangers of rodents and pests, the maintenance of their businesses, the importance of water facilities. You know, you can't have a business facility operating with food and that kind of stuff and not have the proper sanitization to wash your hands and so forth. Tampering with any products in terms of with erasing the expiration dates and that kind of stuff. The correct procedures of taking or placing your price tags, the prices. Now, what Mr. Leader said, and we have been telling persons this, you cannot put your tags, your price tags, over the expiration dates. What he said they do, they normally do when they go into the supermarkets and they see that, they dispose of them because it's illegal. The proper way of disposing their garbage, and of course, he said from that point in time that you can't have a facility operating a business and don't have toilet facilities for the consumers. You know, sometimes you go to the supermarket, you go to a business place, they will tell you that their toilet facilities is only for staff. That is against their act also. We spoke about dual pricing, refunds, exchange. We spoke about illegal signs in which you have some persons putting on their receipts, no refund, no exchange, and that kind of, all sales are final. All those according to our act, it's illegal. We spoke about many complaints that we're getting, the expired stuff, and what they should do in terms of with sale items. We also had a school quiz on the Thursday, in which I must give credit to our judges who took over 2 days because of the amount of persons who entered. We had about 13 students, 17 students, I think it was, from the Maurice Hillier Memorial Junior School. We have to give credit to them. We also have to thank our judges, Mr. Dion French, who, you know, as I said, they stayed for 2 whole days listening to those students. Mr. Dion French, we had Noah Mills, and we have Diana Pemberton. Those 3, you know, even though listening to just one, it was, you know, but listening to over 20-something persons, it was a lot. And out of the quiz, we had Kayla Maccabee from the DAP Primary winning. We had Jovial Watley from the Maurice Hillier Memorial Junior School placing second, and Camira Williams from the Maurice Hillier also the 3rd place winner. I must say on record that I must extend our appreciation to Mr. Noah Mills, who upon himself and his business place, Sen Consulting Agency, who made a personal contribution to 3 students who went way, he felt that they were really exceptional, and the work that they did with their essays was very, very good. He gave $100 to each, which Kayla Maccabee, Jovel Watley, and Mia Romney from the Dr. William Connor Primary. And I must say that Mia was an exception because she was a blind student. Mm-hmm. And Mia actually decided that she wanted to join. The Braille machine wasn't working properly, so we had to find a way into not discrediting anybody. But it was really, really good, and I give credit to all the parents, the teachers, the students who entered in this. And we had for our jingle competition, we had just 2. Sadly, we just had 2 persons, in which the Dr. William Connor Primary and the Beach Allen Primary. Dr. William Connor won, and the Beach Allen placed 2nd. Mm-hmm. The Friday, we had basically, as we said, information day persons come to the department, seek information. Along with, we had giveaways on social media and on the radio programs, in which persons came in. You could have asked the questions, pick and choose anything from, we had different quizzes on the social media page or Facebook page, in which persons also won from that. Mm-hmm. But that's basically how the week ended.
So you would say that the week was a success?
It was a great success. Mm-hmm. It was, especially with the business forum, because we had, when we were thinking, persons might not have taken time out of their business schedule. The businesses markets, because we started, part of our campaign is to educate persons, even though that they're businesses, to educate them and let them know what their rights and responsibilities are, what we as a department are looking for. And we started with the supermarkets because, they interact with everybody. Further down the line, for this year, we would seek to get some other businesses like the store owners, the shoe stores, persons who sell basically to the same forum that we had for the supermarket owners. And I must give credit to Bees Supermarket, King's Pavilion, Star Grocery, Paris Supermarket, Freight Supermarket, Island Foods, Best Groceries, Best Buy Supermarket, David Lee, Penny Supermarket, and Dollar Stretcher. And out of this, we had nearly every Chinese supermarket who attended.
Trista, I like the fact that you said that both the seller and the buyer are consumers. And to me, you put it into perspective, because we are all consumers. And that very fact is that we all have rights and we have responsibilities as well. Sometimes people like to talk about their rights, but they don't like to talk about their responsibilities. But rights and responsibilities go hand in hand. We can't talk about rights and not responsibilities. And that brings me to Tanja. Tanja, what are some of the rights and responsibilities of the consumer?
First of all, good afternoon to the listening audience online and via video. Well, we tried from a consumer perspective. First of all, you have to know the items. We educate consumers. First, we make a list. Mm-hmm. You also you have to know the items that you're going to buy. For instance, if you're going to a store and there's 2 items at 2 different prices, you use the discrepancy in terms of which items you're going to buy, because sometimes there are dual prices. I think Trisco spoke to it. So you have to know, in a case like that, the consumer would get the item that is less. That is part of the consumer law. So my role from the consumer standpoint is report analysis.
Sure.
And gas analysis. And I'm the person who is responsible for receiving complaints from the consumers. We got the prices from 4 major supermarkets in last year.
Okay.
And then from that, analysis is done. And then we keep track of the price fluctuation. Mm-hmm. And so we produce a quarterly report for that. The information for that is also uploaded to the Shoppers app.
Yes.
and so consumers get first-hand information at what the price is in the supermarket on the shelf,
Okay.
without actually stepping foot into the supermarket.
Certainly.
So the Consumer Affairs Department has digitalized the information, the prices of goods, so the service can be more efficient. And as I say, it's a partnership between the consumer affairs, the business and the consumer. So it makes life easier at the end of the day. You can do price comparison for whichever supermarket, so you can know actually before you go to do your shopping, you can know where you're gonna shop. Also, the gas report, we receive data from the Ministry of Finance, who is responsible for assigning gas prices, and we do analysis, comparison, and so it's a comprehensive work that we keep track of all these different changes in price in the market, in trends, and at the end of the day, it's all to educate consumers so they can be better informed.
Mm-hmm. Now, Tanja, what are some of the common complaints that you would receive from consumers?
Sometimes they would purchase an item, and for instance, let's say you purchase a phone, and for some reason, one reason or the other, the phone is not, after it worked probably for a few days, then it stopped working. Most of the companies have been electronic items, I must say. Now, first of all, we'd ask the consumer to show proof of purchase, so you must have your receipt, you must have an ID, and there's a form to be filled out at the Consumer Affairs Department. You fill out that form with the necessary information, the business place where you do your transaction, and other pertinent information. Then we'll take it from there and do an investigation at the end of the day. If it's the proprietor's fault, well, there's a course of redress. You can either say you want a refund, you want the phone exchange, or you want a credit note, purchase something else. So there's options. So again, that is where education comes in. We educate the consumer at the different options they have. And I must say, at the end of the day, you have been productive, because we always have good results at the end of the day. There's cooperation between the business owners, managers, and the consumers. We act as a mediator, and so we always have results at the end of the day.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So it means then that the first thing is really to settle the matter
Yes.
amicably.
Yes.
Suppose that doesn't work. Where do you go?
Well, from my experience, I never experienced a case where it did not work. But okay, let's say scenario that it didn't work. Well, there's the legislation. That's where the legislation comes in, right? And I think the legislation speak to a board that ought to be in place where the matter can be heard, and then sometimes you can go a step further and.
Well,
Yes, Mr. Kwame.
to jump in, the board is not currently in place, but to answer your question, government departments are intertwined, you could say. So if we have an issue where a business does not want to comply with what is in the Act, although our department is not fully operationalized in the way it should be, we could possibly go to the Ministry of Finance, have them hear the matter, and ask them to possibly suspend the business's business license. Because you cannot have the business operating in the market and basically trying to shortchange the customer.
Yes.
So that is one avenue that we could possibly go to.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that I've actually thrown it out to businesses that I could actually have their business license revoked, and in a couple of hours people have their money returned to them. So
Can I take the business to court if I am not satisfied with the redress that I have been given by the Consumer Affairs Department, if I'm not satisfied with that, after their investigations and so on, do I have further redress to have the matter adjudicated in a court of law?
You are free to do that. Sometimes we advise persons to do that if it is above our head. But you have to be aware that it will be costly on your part.
Yes.
So if you choose to go that route, it is on you. So most persons, they try to get the department to settle the dispute for them. And we try our best to do that.
Right. Right. Now, let's go back a bit to the rights and responsibilities, Mr. Quealy, of the consumer. What are some of the rights and responsibilities of consumers? Because the reason I ask that is that your department is key in educating the consumer on their rights and responsibilities. Many times consumers do not know what their rights and responsibilities are. And if you don't know what those are, it puts you in a disadvantageous position. So what are the rights and responsibilities of the consumer?
Well, you have the right to choose. You could shop around for the best product, the best price. What I've noticed here though, persons like to complain a lot, but they do not seem to understand the power that they have as a consumer. Because if you're unhappy with a product from a particular establishment, you could take your business elsewhere. The business needs you more than you need them. So we need to stop complaining, I would say, and exercise our power as a consumer.
The power to choose.
Right. We have the right to be informed, the right to safety, the right to satisfaction of basic needs, the right to a healthy environment, the right to consumer education, the right to redress, which is having your complaint solved by Mr. Moon. So that's about it, yeah. Businesses as well have their part to play in giving information to the consumer. Because at times, a business might have an item to sell, or they might put it on sale, but they might not indicate to the consumer, hey, this is about to expire.
Right.
Use it, buy it at your own risk. And they will allow the consumer to purchase the item, and in like a day, the item has expired, and then they come to the Consumer Affairs Department. Well, in all fairness, that was not illegal because it was not expired at the time. But you should still give the consumer some information about the products. And the consumer themselves must also inquire as to why it is on sale for such a low price as well. Because in most cases, if you see an item on sale, you just saw it yesterday for $50 and it's on sale today for $15, bet your life there's something going on with that product. So consumers and businesses need to work hand in hand with this thing. Everybody is in the same game together. Although the businesses are trying to make a profit, the consumer is trying to get value for their money.
Right, so it's basically a two-way street, because one of the things that I think that consumers must do is that they must read.
Right.
You just don't go to the supermarket or to the grocery and you don't read. And so therefore, one of the key things that you must do is that when you pick up any product, you look for the expiration date. And if you look for the expiration date, you would realize that it expires tomorrow. And so therefore, you will be informed and therefore you will not buy it.
Right.
But another question that I have, do supermarkets and groceries and so on have a right to keep expired goods on their shelves at a reduced price?
In actuality, no, but that is not in our legislation. That is in the Public Health Act. So that would turn into a food safety issue. Alright? Once the item is expired, it is not supposed to be on the shelf for sale. We have this issue with the dates that you see on the items, and persons seem like they're not really aware what the dates are about. You have sell by.
So could you, and apparently that must be part of the department's responsibility to explain those things. You have best before and sell by and manufacturing date and expiration date. Sometimes the consumer does not know what those things mean.
Best before, that is a freshness date. You could possibly eat the item after that date has gone, but it will be degraded to a certain point.
Mm-hmm. The quality
Right.
has is not the same. It has been reduced.
Expired, of course, is expired. You should not eat it, especially if it is an item containing milk, because you could end up in the hospital or you could even die. Sell by, that is a rotational date for the stores themselves to know how to rotate their stock. It is not anything to do with the freshness of the item. So I mentioned best before, sell by, expired. Used by also is used by is also something internal for the stores. So those are what those dates are really about, and persons, as you said, need to pay attention to them so that they know what they're actually doing when they're purchasing stuff.
Some supermarkets and so on are involved in, when certain things are expired, they give it away.
Give it away,
They don't sell it, but they give it away. So what are you involved in? You are not selling it because it's expired, but you're giving it away. And so therefore you are still putting somebody's health at risk by giving it away. You're supposed to actually do what? Throw it away, isn't that so?
The only place they're supposed to be giving those items to is the landfill.
The landfill.
Yeah. So we do inspections on a bi-weekly basis, and in conjunction with the Ministry of Health, our officers would inspect the shelves, remove the items. We would have the store manager sign off on the items that are removed to ensure that they are happy with what was taken down. And once they are removed, the health department would come in and remove these items from the premises once we fax that sheet to them that was signed by the manager. We do not have the authority to remove any items from the supermarkets, so the health department is the one that actually deals with that.
Mr. Quealy, one of the things that the present times in which we live has brought out is that people are questioning. And what are they questioning? In the age of COVID-19, they are questioning vaccines. And they go by certain names. AstraZeneca, Pfizer, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson. You have the one from Russia, Sputnik. You have the one from China, Novavax, and so on. And these are basically pharmaceutical companies that are making the vaccines. And we're hearing about side effects of vaccines, which is basically side effects of drugs. And it is pretty interesting because while we're here talking about consumer rights and what we consume and what goes into our bodies and all of that sort of a thing, to me, there is heightened awareness because of this pandemic and the vaccines and basically what we are putting into our bodies and what we are consuming. The whole discussion and debate about side effects and effectiveness of so and so, to me, is all part and parcel of what we are discussing here today. Are consumers becoming more educated and more aware. Mind you, there might be a level of skepticism and cynicism and all of that sort of a thing, but to me it is not all negative. It is not all negative. There's some positive things coming about it because people are questioning. Will they question the very same way about other products that they are buying? What is the benefit to me? What is the health benefit to me? How much saturated fats is in this? How much sugar is in this? How much salty sodium is in this? And so on. Are some of these chemicals that are in the food, are they carcinogenic? Are they causing cancer? Are they whatever? And to me, that is all a part of the debate. Labeling. How important is labeling, Trista? And in terms of what is in something, what is in the vaccine? What really are the ingredients or whatever in the vaccine? And so on. How important is labeling in terms of food? And how important is that to consumer education? Because I need to know what I am consuming.
Mr. Williams, that brings us to the point of the right to be informed. That's one of our rights. Mm-hmm. You need all the facts. You need to know exactly what you're eating. You need to know exactly what you're using. You need to read the labels carefully. And of course, there are a lot of misleading information. You need to do your own research. It's the consumer's responsibility to ask questions, to read the labels, to read agreements and so forth before completing transactions. Take your time and read the fine print. You have persons who tell you that the words are too small. Those small words are very important. Those small words might be the detrimental part of you. You never know. So take your time and read them. You have to know exactly what you're consuming. You have to know exactly how many salt in it. If you're not supposed to be using this item, you're allergic to one of the contents. Labeling is very, very important, and that is what persons don't get. They just, when you have an item, the big part of it is the picture on the item. That is what they're going to give you. But you have to read what is behind the picture, what is next to the picture. You have to always keep reading to know if it is healthy for you, if it is important to you, if you're allergic to the item, and of course, if the item is valid, if it is good, or it is expired. You take, for example, as Mr. Creeley said, when you come around dairy products, you consume it, you get all kinds of side effects. You could even die. Whose fault is it going to be? Yes, the business owner, it would come into play because you purchased it if it is expired, but if it is not, the onus is on you. So you have to know exactly what you're putting into your body. You have to be
so that
more
information, Trista, has to be information that is on the product.
Yes.
If I am buying a bottle of Tylenol, the ingredients in the Tylenol must be there.
And it must be in English.
How it must be used, must be the directions for use. Mm-hmm. Additionally, what age groups
must be there.
Should take it, and what the side effects are. Mm-hmm. All of those things must be there so that the person should know what it is that they are buying and what it is that they are consuming and what are the possible reactions.
That is why when we had the business forum, we indicated to those that were there, sometimes they have like Dixie biscuit. They open the package and of course they sell them individually. You have other stuff that they could do like that. Sliced cheese. The information is supposed to be on the item. They're not supposed to be selling anything like that out of any, because most of them, some of them will tell you not to be sold individually because the information is on the product packaging itself. So when you open the Dixie biscuit, most of the information, the contents and the expiration date and everything is on the package that is outside, not the clear plastic. There's nothing on it. So those we indicated are illegal and we would have to remove them from their establishment. And of course, health already indicated to them, they'll take them straight to the landfill.
Mm-hmm. So one thing is the labeling, on the proper labeling, and the other thing is the misleading or deceptive
information.
advertising and labeling of goods. What does the legislation say about that, Mr. Quealy? Because, of course, we're talking about labeling. But sometimes what the label says is basically a lie. It's not true. It may be disguised in some way, sort of to deceive the consumer. The consumer is misled, or the consumer is not provided with sufficient information to which the consumer can make an informed choice. Because one of the things, of course, is that the consumer has the right to choose. But I can only choose if you provide me with all of the information. If I am not properly informed, then I am not making an informed choice.
That is correct. In our legislation, there is a section on misleading and deceptive conduct. So if you are found in contravention of this section of the Act, I think the fine in that area is about $10,000. So persons should be aware of this, because businesses operate from the standpoint of, in most cases apparently, to just receive their money. They're not really looking at it as trying to protect the consumer or even trying to protect themselves. And at the end of the day, if they sell something to the consumer and it has something in there that could be harmful to them, they have an allergic reaction, they could be sued. Alright? So businesses need to pay keen attention in what they're selling to the consumers. They should not even attempt to try to mislead them. And it goes even beyond food items. It could be in relation to a phone plan. You cannot tell someone that you're going to offer them a certain amount of minutes for a certain amount of money, and then...
So it's service.
Right. And then when they put the plan on, they are not receiving what they're supposed to be getting for the money. That is illegal. So...
And Mr. Williams, again, authentication is very important. You know, we're talking about content. And that is why when we had the week of activities, the Bureau of Standard was a part of it. And they're responsible for the labeling. And so the business persons, they were brief in that aspect. So again, it's about education as well.
Right. In fact, Tanja,
Yes.
I'm happy that you raised that, because that is one of the questions that I had. That what is the relationship between the St. Kitts and Nevis Bureau of Standards and your department in terms of safety and quality of food. But I want to go back to something that Trista was saying, and what John F. Kennedy said in 1962 in that address when it came to drugs. Because especially in the area of science, there are a lot of scientific terms and so on that people really do not understand. You know, even sometimes when we come and we're telling people about herd immunity and so on, they probably want to know if it's cattle you're talking about. You know, and you really want to break these things down so that people can understand, because they are basically foreign terms to us and so on. And part of the problem is that if you don't understand what something means, you're going to be suspicious of it. And he said, John F. Kennedy, drugs which could also be sold by a simple common name are too often sold by complex scientific names which confuses the purchaser. So one of the responsibilities, I think, of those manufacturers or whomever is supplying whatever, is to make the information as simple as possible so that the consumer can understand. What do you say, Mr. Quealy? Because, I mean, I've been to certain places, and I mean, this has gone, the pendulum has swung. Seeing things perhaps in some supermarkets and so on, written in all Mandarin or written in all Spanish or so on. Well, this is not the language of the language here. The official language here is not Mandarin, and the official language here is not Spanish. So what do you say to that?
Well, in terms of labeling of items here, there is currently no legislation on the books that regulates this. However, we are working on implementing the CARICOM Consumer Protection Bill. And in this document, it has coverage for this. And we are also working on it being set up in a way where we could issue fines right on the spot if we go into your business and realize that you have these things on the shelf. Because we have been speaking to many store owners over and over, and we realize they still have them there. We sort of give them a little leeway by telling them they could put a label on the item, affix a label to the item indicating what it is. Because you can't have a situation where a child goes into a supermarket to purchase something and they end up purchasing a bottle of shoe polish, thinking it's gravy browning or something. So
because they cannot read basically what is on the product.
Right. So we're trying with the business forum to encourage businesses to start the process of complying with what would be in the new legislation instead of waiting until it actually goes in place and then you have a scramble to get these things off your shelf and import different stuff, new stuff, right? Get in the habit of having the correct item on the shelf, have it in English because English is the native language here. And most of these persons who are purchasing the items, I'm sure they can speak English as well. So, yeah, what is this?
And some of the labels are in both. They have dual, more than one language, but English is there, Spanish is there, some of them.
Some of them. And some of them have a complete foreign language and there's nothing else besides the foreign language. So that is not acceptable. Although as I said, it is not in the law to police it as yet, we are working on putting it in place.
Yeah, and even though you may say, well, look, it's you see Colgate, and it says Colgate, but of course every other writing on the box is not in English. The Colgate is only basically the brand, and I still have a right to know what is in my Colgate. Is what is in this Colgate, this box of Colgate, the same thing that is in another box of Colgate, for example?
Yeah, and even one time I got a call from a lady about a box of eye drops she bought. When she opened the box, there's this little paper inside, and everything on it is in Chinese. So she called to complain about that.
Because you can't follow any directions or anything like that. Basically, it is,
But that's why we have the right to choose. You could leave the item there. I would not purchase anything that I can't read. I don't know what the contents inside of it, so I would leave it.
Right. So therefore, of course, also you have the right to choose, but also what you're providing to people. So it works from both ends of the spectrum. Because while I have the right to choose, nobody should be supplying me that either.
That's it.
Right.
That's true.
So I have the right to choose, but you have a responsibility as well to provide me with a product that I can save and I can understand what it is that I am buying. And that is where the rights and responsibilities, I think, are in some sort of a symbiotic relationship. They're going hand in hand,
Because take, for example, the right to safety. We need to be protected against product possessions and services that are hazardous to our health and to our life. We read directions, but of course the responsible consumer needs to make sure they do their own research. They need to ask questions at point of sale, and of course do their own research on the internet and so forth. So both of the rights and responsibilities, they all go hand in hand.
I recall that looking in the news that one of these French-speaking Caribbean islands, I think it was a Martinique or Guadeloupe, where they were using a particular fertilizer in agriculture that was highly carcinogenic. And a lot of people on the island started coming down with cancer because of basically not fertilizer, but pesticide that they were using. So in terms of hazardous goods, goods that are really a danger to the consumer, for example, how does the department intervene? How do you go about gathering your information, documenting it, the evidence in cases of danger to the public? Because in some cases there are definitely cases where there's a danger to the public. A particular good is a danger to the public. And you would have to gather your information, document, and have the evidence that this is a danger to the public. Does the Minister, of Consumer Affairs, they have the legality to intervene and things like that?
Well, what we do, we monitor the FDA, Federal Drug Administration website on a regular basis, because they put out advisories and recalls on certain products. Excuse me. So our officers would be dispatched from time to time to check the supermarket shelves, various institutions, to see if the items that is on recall in the US is actually on our shelves here, because it's not all times that the item that has been identified is actually in the stores. And as Ms. Stennett has just said, we look for the batch number of the particular item. We have never had an instance where once we have shown it is a hazardous item to the store owner that they did not want to remove it from the shelf. So we did not have to ask assistance from the Ministry of Health or any other agency. We did not even have an instance where the minister would have to get involved. The legislation does have in it a clause where
the minister can get involved.
Right. The ministry can take legal action against that individual or company. But in most cases, as I said, we always have smooth sailing with the businesses complying to remove the items from the shelf. I guess they look at it from the point that they could be sued. So they always comply.
So I suppose as well with the importation of certain goods, and you said that there is always the monitoring taking place with the Food and Drug Administration, looking at their site with the most up-to-date information in terms of recalls of goods and so on. Sometimes you have products that you say they have E. coli bacteria.
Right.
You have the romaine lettuce. I remember some time ago they had the corned beef from somewhere. I don't know if it's in Brazil or some place like that, and so on. And then what happens if that product has already been imported into the Federation? How do you go about policing that and to ensure that those things are actually removed from the shelves of supermarkets and groceries and so on, so that they do not pose a danger to the public?
In an instance like that, like what you mentioned with the meat from Brazil, we had to be a part of a joint task force with the Ministry of Health, and I think it was Agriculture. And we were involved in going to the supermarkets, trying to determine if that sort of beef was actually on sale in the supermarkets, and removing it from the shelf, the same way how we do our regular inspections every week or every bi-weekly.
So how would you know? How would you know this is the one that is contaminated? How would you know that?
Based on the shipment code, the area, with the beef came from a specific area in Brazil. So we had to identify or find out from the merchant if they purchased their beef from that area. And if it was from that area, it would have to be seized and destroyed. As I indicated before, with other items usually have a UPC code, batch number, so you identify the item based on that one.
Okay. Right. No, Trista, you mentioned something very important. The right that a consumer has to a clean and healthy shopping environment.
Yes, they do. That's why, as a consumer, because as I say, everybody's a consumer, I am not going to go into any establishment that is filthy. No. Consumer affairs, along with health, we have the power for us to actually go to the back of supermarkets or business places to see how behind there is. And if it's unhealthy, of course, the health from time to time would, as we would say, has the power to shut their doors.
Yeah, like where people, for example, they're cutting up their meats and all of that sort of a thing, you know?
I remembered when I went to an establishment to collect prices, actually a rat came on my foot, went out on my foot, and we had no other choice but to call the health department. They closed their doors because you as a consumer or as customer inside there, I am working and here's this rodent come out on my foot. Run across my foot.
Mm-hmm.
So we that is something that we look at when we go out to make sure that the business places, their surroundings, they are healthy. Now, in terms of good health, when sometimes we go into the markets, we see cardboards and stuff because their refrigerators are leaking. That, of course, is a danger and it's a health issue. The health department can close their doors at any time. They have the power to do that. So all that we need to do is to notify the health department when we go out there what we find, if they don't go themselves, and they have the right to close their doors.
Now, while we're talking about Tanja, and if you feel free to answer,
Yeah.
while we're talking about, predominantly, we're discussing goods. But we not only consume goods, we're also consumers of services. We're also consumers of services. And what right does the consumer have to proper customer service? Because that is a problem. I go into a supermarket or I go into a restaurant or a hotel or whatever it is, and the consumer, the person who is there, you have a right to the top service. Let's put it that way, Mr. Quayle.
Well, unfortunately, we cannot regulate customer service. That is something on the businesses. The businesses are supposed to be trying to have their staff operate at a certain level to entice the customers to come back again.
Right. But that has an impact on the consumer. The type of service that the consumer receives impacts the consumer and may impact your business as well.
That is true. One business in particular, I had to ask one time if they actually get customer service training.
Mm-hmm.
No, but this is in a good way now,
In a good way?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Because
mm-hmm.
of the way in which the young ladies always respond to me when I'm there. And sometimes they even know me by name,
Mm-hmm.
another person.
Mm-hmm.
So when I inquired, they actually said yes, they get customer service training.
Mm-hmm.
So businesses need to invest in their staff so that they will learn how to interact with customers properly.
Right. But what in terms of, that's one thing, that in terms of the hospitality, how people are nice towards others and so on in the business and all of that. What in terms of the service, something that you're paying for it, and you do not receive what you're actually paying for. So for example, I have cable service or a phone service, let's put it that way, and I am not receiving the service that I am paying for. There seems to be some breach of the contract because I am paying to receive quality service and the quality service is not being given to me. Then it seems to me that there's something wrong in that contract.
That goes down the lines of misleading and deceptive conduct as well, because you're advertising you could provide a certain level of service to the customer and you're not actually doing that.
Does your department cover that?
It is in our legislation, but we were told that that would go under NTRC once it comes to telephone.
The National Telecommunications
Right.
Regulatory Commission. Mm-hmm.
So if there's a complaint from a customer relating to that sort of service, we would just forward them to NTRC and they will take it from there.
Okay. Good. Now the COVID-19 and its impact on the consumer and consumer protection in terms of health and so on during the pandemic. Consumers have a right to be protected. Would that fall under health? Because, for example, we are talking here in terms of a virus. We go to supermarkets, we are touching goods, we are touching merchandise, we are touching counters, we are touching baskets, and all of those things which may put the consumer at risk.
Well, I think the Ministry of Health put in place, or the NEOC put in place certain guidelines for cleaning,
protocols.
right? Cleaning the areas where customers would frequently touch.
Mm-hmm.
So customers should have some sort of ease of mind in doing their shopping. I don't think that the store owners would actually go on the shelf, or the persons working on the shelf would actually clean each individual item. But the supermarket carts and the hand baskets are cleaned.
Mm-hmm.
And each person would have to sanitize as they enter the establishment. So there should be some ease of mind when you're trying to do your shopping, that you know that the item that you're touching would not have on any virus, I should say.
Right.
I mean, not to cut Mr. Creedy, what I do every time I enter establishment, with sanitize of course, but I use the same hand sanitizer to sanitize the handle of the trolley. Because, from time to time you'll keep moving. We don't know if they're doing it as fast as they're supposed to do it. So
Yes.
basically we also supposed to make sure that we are safe.
Right. Right. Now, in terms of penalties for delinquent suppliers of goods.
Delinquent suppliers of goods, are you speaking about someone who is trying to provide a service?
Yes.
That goes down the same line that we were mentioning earlier, where you're paying for a service and you're not receiving what you're supposed to receive. Or you're entered into a contract with someone. Let's say a carpenter was supposed to make some cupboards for you and they did not do it.
Yes.
You had a verbal contract, but it would be advised to have something written. So if needs be, and you have to take the person to court, you could have something in writing to actually stand on, and not just
Right.
word of mouth.
Right.
But there are provisions in the Act. But as I said earlier, sometimes we tend to direct persons for legal advice if we think that it is above our head, and that sort of item, we would encourage them to seek legal advice.
Right. Okay. That leads me to, you spoke about the written thing. How important is proof of purchase? What rights do consumers have to return faulty goods? The manner of rejecting goods and the loss of right to reject goods.
You want me to go?
Yes.
I don't know.
Well, the receipt is very important. That is your contract between the supplier and yourself to say that you actually purchased the item from there. If you purchase an item and it is deemed to be faulty, businesses, in most cases, they don't like to accept responsibility to say that the item that they're providing is actually faulty. But if it is actually faulty on their part and it wasn't damaged by the consumer, the business would be liable to provide certain remedies for the situation. They could repair the item. Well, that is if the consumer actually wants it repaired. They could refund their money, or they could exchange the item.
Okay.
Right?
Or even offer credit notes.
Right.
So there are different ways that they can go about it. So there can be a monetary refund. There can be an exchange. And what else?
Repair.
You can be repaired.
Yeah, but along that line, you cannot have in your store any sign saying that you cannot get your money back. No refunds. Because it's going against what is in the act. Because I just said that you could get your money back if they cannot repair or replace the item. Or if they do not have anything of equal value that you may want, they would have to give you back your money.
Okay. There are some persons who put clauses in there like you can return the item after 72 hours, but after 72 hours you can't return it. Is it possible to say that? Sometimes I see that sort of a thing. Return within 24 hours or return within whenever.
Stores can set the return policy, but you cannot try to shortchange the customer or outsmart them. Most return policies that we see are usually like 6 to 12 months, according to the value
6
of the
to
item.
12 months.
Yeah. And we've had cases here where persons are issuing items and they're telling the customer that they can only return them within like 2 days. So
24 hours.
you cannot set unrealistic terms. Although you can set your store policy, you cannot set unrealistic terms to try and outsmart the consumer.
It's only a guarantee. Yeah? It's a guarantee. For example, if things have 2 year guarantee, a 1 year guarantee. But what I find, Mr. Quayle, is that in these parts, sometimes what happens is that we purchase a lot of product from overseas. We bring stuff in, but that warranty, that 2 year guarantee does not. We are not beneficiaries of it because it's only, they will tell you this only applies in the United States or it only applies in Canada, and you are here.
In reality, the store that purchased that item from overseas is the one who will be responsible for that item. If you purchase the item, you can take the item back to them once you have the warranty card, and that store in turn would be responsible for trying to fix the item. Even if it involves sending it back to the company that they got it from. Because there is implied warranties, which is you expect the item to work in the manner that it should, and there is express warranty, which is the card inside of the item, which sets out the time frame for returning it, and stuff like that. So in a nutshell, the businesses, although they may want to tell you that that's the end of the road, or you would have to deal with it on your own if something goes wrong with it, that is not actually the case. The business is the one who would have to send it back to the place that they got it from.
Okay.
Especially with electrical stuff.
Okay. I'm happy that you clarify that. Now we are going to go to the phone as with the time we have left. Really, 15 minutes, 20 minutes we have left. And the numbers to call are 1718-577-2916. That's the overseas number, 1718-577-2916. And the local number is 465-2555. Someone seems as though they're already on the line. Working for you, good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon. How are you doing?
Very well.
One question that popped up. I tuned in late. I just haven't heard the latter part of the discussion. Now, there's a local sort of scale that's going on with juices around that here. Everybody's selling juice, no label. Everybody's selling food, no label. What are the consumers should be getting in these kind of situations with the local producer, local drink especially, that be selling around town and telling you buy your passion, buy your this, buy your that, with no label on it. And I'm not sure if any inspection is being going out in the area where it's being prepared. You know if it's filtered water, to know what are the ingredients, any testing or anything like that going on. What are the consumers to expect with that? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your call, caller. That was an interesting question. Working for you, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, and I hope this question will work for me if you can answer it. I listened to your program, and most of it was centered around consumer goods from supermarkets, etc., etc. Let's look at service done by contractors and the tradesmen, especially the contractors and electricians. There are so many times when people are complaining about the things that contractors do to them. They give you a price and they're working, and after they change the price, they change different things and running you up in thousands and thousands of dollars. Mm-hmm. What did the consumer affairs have in place? Because I had a problem. One of your agents, I called him and he spoke with the electrician, and I would not say they are friends. I wouldn't say that. But they eventually decided I must take it to some other department, and I couldn't understand. So I just leave it. The electrician messed up my place. I get it fixed afterwards, cost me extra money, and it was that. But I spoke with someone from Consumer Affairs. What is your responsibility towards consumers who are affected by these tradesmen? And I'm specifically talking about contractors and the electricians. I'll listen off here.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So those are two questions.
In terms of labeling, the Bureau of Standards for quite some time has been trying to implement some labeling requirements of the agro-processors. They have been engaging with these stakeholders.
Just hold it there. We have another call. They're coming fast and furious. Working for you. Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon. I would like to get some things clarified here in relation to
Go ahead. We're hearing you.
Good. Yes. So the toilet facilities, they should be made available, or they must be available.
Okay, Trista. Okay, we are going to provide that answer. I'll have Trista answer you. Thank you so much for your question. Is that the only question you have? Working for you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yes.
I have a simple, direct question.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes. Am I on?
Yes, we are hearing you.
Okay. I'm in the supermarket and I see an item on the shelf marked. Hello?
Yes, we are listening. We're hearing you.
Yeah, I see an item marked $7.50. When I go to the cashier, it's saying $17.50 or $27.50 or $37.50. Now, as far as I know, I'm supposed to pay the price that is advertised. What are my rights and responsibilities in that scenario?
Thank you very much for your question. Okay, great. We have a few questions here we can tackle.
Well, let me try and finish the first one. As I was saying, the Bureau of Standards was engaging with agro-processors to put labeling on their items indicating what is inside the juice.
Yes.
Because, sometimes persons have allergic reactions to certain ingredients. Mm-hmm. However, this has not been actually passed into law as yet, so that is why they still continue to sell them in the manner that they're selling them.
So there is no law governing the labeling of locally made products?
Not
as yet. That's what I mean.
As yet.
It's not enforced.
No. Mm-hmm. With construction.
So there again, of course, Mr. Quealy, you probably should. There again, the consumer has the power to choose. They can choose to buy it or not buy it.
Right.
So what I find with a lot of these local drinks, and I'll say it here, especially in this age when we're talking in terms of cutting down on sugar. Some of them, they're pure sugar. And I basically, I choose not to buy local drinks costing $5 and so on with so much sugar in it. I can't. It's not good for my health.
Yeah, but at the same time, you cannot go and buy a drink with a label on it that has the same amount of sugar.
No, and so therefore that I don't. So therefore I know what it is that I am getting, because I don't know how much sugar in it, but all I know it is extremely sweet.
Someone mentioned about contractor prices. We were along this line a little bit earlier. This is something that you would start to have an agreement between you and the contractor, and it has to be more than word of mouth. As I mentioned, you would have to have a sort of contract between you and the individual.
A written contract.
Right. You're paying for a service. You should be getting what you're paying for. The price should not be changed after you have entered into the agreement. But based on the fact that we are not actually set up in the manner that we should be, we encourage persons with this magnitude of a case to go and seek legal advice. Right? I know persons would not like to hear that because it would be a cost to them, but we cannot try and remedy a situation that we are not really equipped to handle.
In addition to what Mr. Quealy said, I remember in 2008, in the department, we had a matter in which an electrician, someone was building, their property, and the electrician kept asking for stuff, as the gentleman indicated, similarly, kept asking for, stuff. So the price had actually increased tremendously. We indicated to the person who the property belonged to, they can seek a legal action, because they had the written stuff, the document as to what he estimated the price supposed to be.
Yes.
Remember, it's an estimate. They say they can change as the prices go up. But in that period, it was really overcharging. So the person was afraid, so they didn't want to go to the legal actions and what's not. But I tried to encourage the person,
Yes.
which they did. Eventually, the electrician had to reimburse them
Yes.
for all the money and what's not, and also pay for their legal services that they rendered. So, in any event, we might think that we don't want to go the legal process, but it is our right to do it, to make sure that we stand up for ourselves and get the best of our dollars. In reference to the caller who indicated about the toilet facilities, the Ministry of Health indicated that you need to use the bathroom at that point when you're in the establishment. As long as they have one, you must be afforded the availability of the toilet facility.
I totally agree, because I have been to supermarkets and so on, and sometimes I want to do something, you know what that is, and I really don't know if I have a bathroom, a urinal to go to.
This is something that they say that they have put in place, and for businesses now that are coming on stream, you must have that in your plans in order for you to be issued the health approval in order to get the business license.
You really should, because sometimes nature calls and you need to go, and you need to have a place to go to.
And then there was another one about dual pricing. The Consumer Affairs Act indicates, Section 42, that no person shall in trade or commerce sell goods to which more than one price is appended at a price that is greater than the lower or the lowest of the prices. So in simple terms, you must be given the lower price of it. Now, in terms of with the dual pricing, if you go to the cashiers, and of course the cashier is telling you that it is one price in the system and another price on the item. Of course, whichever one is the lowest of it, you must be given. What we encourage persons to do, because sometimes they will tell you that they don't want to sell you, so you leave the item. What we encourage you to do is to take a photo. Everybody have phones now that you can take a photo. You take the photo of the item with one price, and if the price, you know, they're telling is another price, you take the photo of that. You know, you have your proof that this is the price. Now, when we had the business forum, we indicated to the supermarket owners, because some, when we go to them, will tell us, the consumer them, they change the price. No, if it is one, I could understand that. But if it's more than one, the fault is yours. You have to own up to your fault. You can't just throw the blame on the consumer. And I keep telling them, you know, respect the consumer. Don't think that the consumer would always be at fault. We are here to protect the consumer. Yes, we know some person would tend to change it, because I remember at one point we had a call, we had to go to an establishment, and they actually showed us the camera that the consumer was changing the price. I understand that, but most of the times the fault is the business owned. So when it comes around jewel pricing, you pay the lowest of the value. So make sure, in order for you to do that, you can take a picture of the item and then bring it to us.
You know, Trista, one of the things is that we speak about the proof of purchase, which is your receipt. But we have a great responsibility to check the receipt as well, to make sure that what is on the receipt is what is in your bag. Because, you know, one time I bought some things, I won't say which supermarket, and when I got home, I see certain things on the receipt that I do not have. And I had to go back. So you really need to check your receipt, because sometimes what is it that they're punching in? And sometimes really what is happening is that they're punching the same thing twice. That happens. The same thing is punching twice, and so you're actually paying a double price for a single item because of the fault of the cashier. So you have to actually check your receipt as well.
You have to make sure that what they're swiping, because the swiping, they do it so fast that sometimes they double up. You have to make sure what you have, and especially if it's something that is on sale, you have to make sure that what is on sale is actually what you get. Because I know sometimes when I go to a particular supermarket, they have one thing on sale, but in the system, it hasn't changed. It hasn't changed. So you have to make sure you observe exactly what the prices should be. Make a note of it. If you're not going to remember, walk with a notepad. Drop down the price of whatever the item is, what you saw on the shelf. And of course, make sure when you go to the cashier, it's the same price.
You are correct. And then sometimes also you go to the store, you pick up certain things, you reach to the cashier, and the cashier does not have it. The pricing inside in the system.
Well, most times they have the prices in the system, but it's much more than what they have on the shelves.
So these are really some of the things, and consumers basically must be aware of these things.
Yeah, they have to check.
You know?
Going back along the lines of persons saying that the consumer is changing the price. I've spoken to store owners, and they're telling me like products would be in the wrong place on the shelves because of their staff placing them at a wrong price, right? But as I said earlier, we're trying to start a fining process with the new legislation when it comes into being, and it will not be fines that go into the staff of the business. So you must be on top of your staff to keep things in order. Because when the fines come, they come into your establishment, not the staff.
The owner.
Right.
And Mr. Queedy, you are the director of a very, very important department. You know? Because we are all consumers. And we have to be protected and respected. You know, what's his name said? Mahatma Gandhi, and I want to read it, because sometimes we operate differently. Mahatma Gandhi said that customers are the most important visitor on our premises. They are not dependent on us. We are dependent on them. They are not an interruption in our work. They are the purpose of it. They are not outsiders in our business. They are part of it. We are not doing them a favor by serving them. They are doing us a favor by giving us an opportunity to do so. And sometimes we think it's the other way around. You have a business and you think you're doing me a favor. And so therefore you can treat me anyhow you want. You can disrespect me. You can disrespect my rights and you can set your price and whatever you want. But you must understand that without me, you have no business.
Yeah.
And you are dependent upon me. And you are there basically to be good to the consumers and so on and so on. You know, so... And Bill Gates, the famous Bill Gates said, your most unhappy customers are your greatest source of learning.
Yeah, unhappy consumer can make you change the way in which you conduct your business.
An unhappy consumer can make you change the way in which you conduct your business. And consumers must know their rights. You have rights as a consumer. You must know your rights and do not put up with any kind of crap. That is the whole. You don't put up with any kind of crap.
Okay.
And you also have the power to choose.
But along that line, when you're saying do not put up with crap, do not go in a store to cause confrontation.
And also, you don't go into a store to cause confrontation. There's a way certain to do things, and that is why the department is there. If you have a problem and so on, it can be brought to your department.
Because
where's your department located? I don't even know.
Nagico building, bottom floor.
Oh, it's in the Nagico building, bottom floor. Okay. And Tanja, you have such a important responsibility, because talking about all of this, and you're the one that have to go out and investigate, and complaints come to you, and all of that sort of a thing, and you have to really understand, you know, the consumer, and to be sympathetic to the cause and the complaints of the consumer, and try to see how, you know, things can be worked out in an amicable way, that the consumer can get redress for what is happening, and so on.
Yes. That have been the case. I mean, we have a good relationship with both consumer and
supplier.
Yes. So we always have some level ground at the end of the day.
Okay, very good. And you have the temperament for it, so you have the temperament. Well, I want to thank all three of you so much for coming today and being on our program. Is there anything you want to say before we go, Mr. Queely and Trista and Tanja?
Thank you for having us here. It was a very lively discussion. I would like to tell the consumers, although we may get some criticism from time to time, I see it from time to time on Facebook, the department can only operate within the laws under which it operates, basically.
Yes.
So although they may want us to do things outside of the law, we cannot do that, because then we would open the government up to lawsuits. Alright? So we try to do our best within the framework that we have.
Right.
So persons must still be aware that if you have an issue, you can come to our department, we will investigate it for you, and if there is any merit to your claim, we will try our best to remedy it. Right, thank you very much for having us here again.
Tanja?
Yes, that's why thank you for allowing us to share with the public, you know, vital information as to the role and the responsibility of the department. And it's forums like these we continue to use as a medium to educate consumers, and so we thank you for the fruitful discussion.
Thank you. Trista?
Just want to thank you for having us, and of course would reiterate that we are here to serve the general public. We are here for everybody, and of course I'm going to ask persons if they have any problems, any issues, anything they want to query, they can contact us at 465-2521 extension 2616 or 2640, that's 2640, or 467-1550 or 467-1641. They can also email us at consumeraffairs@gov.kn, consumeraffairs, one word, @gov.kn, and of course they can visit or like our Facebook page, which is the St. Kitts Consumer Affairs Department.
Right. Thank you so much, Trista. And thank all three of you, Trista, Tanja, and Mr. Quealy. Thank you so much for coming today and for sharing with the audience and such an important topic, that of the protection of consumer rights and understanding what our rights and our responsibilities are as consumers. As I read in the beginning from John F. Kennedy, who was a champion basically for consumer rights, that we are all consumers and our rights must be respected and protected. And before I go, I want to read 3 quotes. One is, do not compromise on the quality and your customers will not negotiate on the price. And Michael LaBeouf said, a satisfied customer is the best strategy of all. And Chip Bell said, loyal customers, they don't just come back. They don't simply recommend you. They insist that their friends do business with you as well. So that we must understand. Thank you to all of our listeners and our callers to today's program. We continue to appreciate your company from week to week. Next week we will be back with another edition of Working for You. Until then, take good care. Get vaccinated. I am Lesroy Williams. See you next week.